So, yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for the people of Membertou for welcoming us to their land, and thank you to the ICI for continuing to give me some airtime to present the work that ISED's doing, and for putting on this great event. So my name is Mark Saunders. I'm Ojibwe from Chiging First Nation. It's in the Robertson Huron Treaty Territory. But I live and work in Ottawa on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Today I'm speaking to you as a manager, a government representative from the Spectrum Policy Branch at ISED, or Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. I'm here to talk to you about Spectrum and the IPW, Indigenous Priority Window. A lot of the background was kind of covered in the previous panel, which was great. So I'll kind of go through the first part maybe a little quicker. So for those of you that participated in the Spectrum Sovereignty Summit back in February, this is kind of an update or continuation of that conversation. So I'll go through a couple slides on some background on what Spectrum is, a little bit about the Spectrum Management Program and the role of government, and then get into the priority window policy and what we've heard so far, as well as some next steps. So this is a short video. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, it's all good. It's not that exciting, but there's sound with it, but so it might be weird without it. Okay, I'll narrate. This is just a short video, kind of showing the reason why the government manages Spectrum. Is kind of spoken to in the last panel. It's to reduce interference and to allow services to work close to each other. That's kind of the gist of it. I can share the video separately, but that's okay. We can move on. So we've had a lot of discussion around, why should you care about connectivity? There was a great panel yesterday on, the importance of broadband, the importance of connectivity, and it kind of extends itself to why should you care about Spectrum, because Spectrum is a critical part of connectivity. As a lot of talk about fiber is really important too, but at some point your signal is going to jump across the air. The best example obviously is your cell phone. So a lot of the reasons you should care about Spectrum are the same as why you should care about connectivity, and I feel I don't really need to explain that to everybody here. The last 4 years have really brought it to the surface with the pandemic and everyone working from home and trying to finish school online. And for communities that don't have great internet, that was a huge challenge. So the importance was really brought to the forefront. And Spectrum, while it's just a piece of that puzzle, it is a critical piece. So enabling first responders, including we've seen wildfires in the last couple of years accelerate in Canada, and in areas where there's low connectivity. We've heard stories of communities having to go on the old school radio and alert communities to evacuate. So it's a public safety issue, as well as it's essentially for life. So some of the pictures here, obviously air traffic control, public safety, cell coverage on highways. There's still a lot of dead spots in Canada. Your car breaks down on a remote road and in an area, it's a safety issue, especially in the middle of winter. So anyway, I feel I don't need to go on about why it's important, but those are kind of the main reasons. So this is just kind of a slide on what's the government's role, and I think Gregory Taylor did a great job kind of going over our role. But one thing I wanted to highlight, the government's authority to manage spectrum comes from a specific piece of legislation called the Radio Communications Act. That's what gives the minister of my department, Minister Champagne at the moment, the authority to manage spectrum. So through that piece of legislation, that act, he has the power to issue licenses, set conditions, establish technical standards, and so on. Yeah, so this picture kind of the international component, I think the previous panel spoke to it very well. You know, a lot of meetings at the international level to kind of coordinate allocations so that, you know, services work across borders, and to enable Canadians to benefit from devices, so that the latest iPhone works in Canada, and such. So we have a big engineering department or branch of the Spectrum program who attend those international meetings. They're every 4 years is kind of the big one. So they attend, other countries send delegates as well, and those conversations happen there. And then at the national level, we look at what was decided internationally and put it in the Canadian context, and then publish policies and consult on them and issue decisions. So that's kind of our role in a nutshell. The Spectrum program at ISED is kind of broken up into 5 branches. So the Spectrum policy branch that I work in is the smallest. It's about 30 people. But then we have a very large engineering branch, operations branch that has regional offices across Canada. And then there's our funding delivery branch that delivers the Universal Broadband Fund. I'm missing one. Oh, and our research branch. So the Communications Research, CRC. Another acronym I'm drawing a blank on right now. They do a lot of research into studying airwaves. They certify equipment that comes into Canada, and kind of to gain a better understanding of the possibilities. So this slide just shows kind of a few different ways to access spectrum. You know, auctions are kind of the highest profile that you may or may not have heard of. It's when, you know, when the demand is high from telcos, we auction it. It does bring in a lot of money for Canada, as was mentioned. And we've heard, you know, challenges with participating in auctions. There are other ways. First come, first served is another way. So that's exactly as it sounds. The first one to apply gets the license. I'll talk about a couple examples of that in a second. There's also license exempt. So as long as you have the right equipment, you can take off and use it. And then secondary market. So that would be negotiations with license holders to use some of their spectrum. The two I want to highlight though are the first come, first served policies. So Professor Taylor went over these two in his presentation, but the non-competitive local licensing framework, it's got an awful name, so apologies for that, but that one does represent kind of a shift in spectrum management in Canada. It established a framework where users could draw a contour around a smaller area, put in some parameters, and then be issued a license. And we're developing an online tool to kind of go along with that. The policy's out, the tool's not ready yet, but it should be soon. It's starting with the 3900 megahertz band, but the idea is more spectrum would be put into that. So the idea here is a shift away from our larger area licenses. This would allow, you know, Indigenous communities to draw the contour around their community, get that license, and off you go, as well as university campuses, manufacturing facilities, so that kind of small scale. The other one, access licensing framework. Again, Professor Taylor mentioned that in the previous presentation. This one is tied to the IPW, so it's kind of important I'd say a few words about it. As he mentioned, when we consulted on it in 2021, there wasn't anything included speaking to a priority window, but we did hear, we heard from Indigenous communities about the need and calling us out to make those unused licenses available to Indigenous communities first. So I should back up. That policy basically looks at licenses that were issued decades ago, but there's still pockets that remain unused. So we kind of are carving out those areas and making them available to people that can use them. So in the decision that was released in January, it announced that we are putting a priority window on those unused sections of those licenses for Indigenous applicants. So that all leads to what we're consulting on now is kind of the criteria around what does that priority window look like. But first, I'll quickly show our team. So the Indigenous Spectrum Policy team, there's 3 of us. Again, the Spectrum Policy branch is 30 people. I know 3 might not seem a lot, but it is 10% of the branch. Marielle is sitting over there, so please go say hi. Our pit in the middle is not here. She was recently in Whitehorse, spreading awareness of the IPW up there. So that's us. Yeah, come say hi. And our purpose. So a little context on the team, and I know I've talked about this before, but it was created in 2022 for a few reasons. The government priority around economic reconciliation is a government-wide mandate for this Liberal government. On that I did appreciate Gregory Taylor's analysis into the window and political shifts, but won't get into that at the moment. But for now, this is a priority for the Canadian government. Connectivity gaps exist in First Nations communities. I think the latest numbers show that 50% of First Nations households have access to high-speed broadband, compared to 99% of urban Canadian households and 67% of rural Canadian households. So the gap exists, and then it's much worse in the north. And then lastly, the calls from Indigenous leadership. It's been growing over the last 10 years or so, but really picked up in the last 4, I'd say. The Assembly of First Nations has included Spectrum specifically in their calls to action, their resolutions. In 2020 they started, and then they revised those resolutions in April of 2023. So that, along with leadership from Indigenous communities, I know Chief Hobart's been very vocal on this issue, and a lot of people in this room, the Indigenous Connectivity Institute, and through comment submissions on our Spectrum consultations, companies like EU Communications, First Mile Connectivity Consortium, and others that I'm probably missing. So Indigenous people are becoming more aware, and the need and the desire to be included in our consultation processes, as well as gain access to Spectrum is growing, and it was impossible to ignore. Furthermore, we looked at our neighbors to the south who had done a priority window. The timing was now in 2022, and something needed to be done. So my previous boss kind of stood up this group. He's now over at the CRTC, but him and I kind of put this together. It started as me. We have Mariella in our pit now. And the kickoff was really the ICI in Winnipeg that I kind of stumbled online and found it and went there, and it was fantastic. It was just like this, a little smaller, but the conversations were amazing. And it was really the sense of community that came together and really kind of drove home the importance of this work and connectivity in general. So for me, this has been a learning journey. I'm still learning. I want to emphasize there is a short window now, but I want to make it clear, like, this is a first step. Like, we started out, as Gregory pointed out, we had a question in a consultation back in 2022, and now we've come out with this priority window policy. But to us, this is, just another step forward, and we do see this as a long-term need in government and the Spectrum program. So we don't want to lose sight of the grand vision. And to Anthony Taylor's, I'm combining names now, Anthony's point from New Zealand, when you are submitting comments, don't just comment on the priority window, but tell us your grand vision. Get those on the record, because they are important, and I'll speak to that a little bit more. But this is really an incremental step forward that will help some Indigenous groups now. But we want to keep the momentum going. We want to keep making strides. And we can't do that without your voices, because that's what resonates with internally. It shows the interest. And we have a long way to go, but I hope you'll see this as kind of a step in the right direction. So why we're here, the Indigenous Priority Window. So to kind of recap what this is, on January 30th, we published this draft policy. The intention is to give Indigenous applicants priority access, or first dibs, on a set of licenses. So again, it's similar to what the FCC did. A few kind of minor differences, but essentially it's the same thing. It's a time-limited window. We proposed a year to open up application to Indigenous applicants. And then it'll be open to the general public. So one difference, I guess, I would highlight between this and the FCC's approach is that we're applying this to a specific set of licenses first, the PCS and cellular bands. But it is establishing a general framework that we intend to apply moving forward to other licensing processes. So that's why it's so important to get the criteria right now. Not to say there'll be time to adjust, but it will set out a general framework that becomes easier to tack on to other spectrum initiatives. It's basically 5 key criteria, and essentially to me, the most important one, or the kind of the critical one that we're really hoping we can hear from you on, is the eligibility criteria. So this is kind of a differentiation from the U.S. one as well. So in terms of eligibility, who should be considered an Indigenous applicant? We put forward kind of 3 approaches. One being, if you're an Indigenous-owned business or Indigenous community, that could be enough. Or a community support-based approach. So, that could enable partnerships. If you're a, non-Indigenous ISP, internet service provider, but you can get a letter of support from the band council or the local community government to say, yeah, we want these guys to, connect us. That could be one way. The last way was a project-based approach, which is taking a look at the specific project and seeing if it's Indigenous benefiting, Indigenous led, and so on. The other is policy objective. We have a stated policy objective around, I think it's on the screen there. But engagement as well is something we were really hoping to get some feedback on. I think it was mentioned in the previous panel, typically when spectrum consultations are released, unless you know where to look, unless you're familiar with the language, you're gonna have a hard time. So we did make some efforts with this engagement that I'll kind of go over in a second, but we want to hear how we can improve on that, and not just for one-offs. We'd like to hear how we can, have more regular conversations, be a little more proactive rather than reactive on spectrum matters. So whether that's setting up tables, regional discussions, whether it's, every 2 months we have a virtual meeting, I don't know. But so looking for ways to kind of come together and talk to each other more. Conditions of license, so looking for feedback on, deployment requirements, how long should a license be, et cetera. And then the time-limited window itself, so looking for feedback on, we proposed a year for this window, but asking is that sufficient? So this just shows, in combination with this draft policy, we put together a pathfinding website, and we have some kind of handouts that we'll maybe leave at the front that have a QR code that can lead you to this webpage. So we made efforts to have it a little more plain language, a little more visual. I know it's not perfect, but compared to traditional spectrum policies, I'm hoping it's easier to navigate, but again, let us know. So it includes some background information on spectrum in general, spectrum licensing, what this policy is all about. There's an interactive map that shows a preliminary view on where licenses might be available that's searchable by Indigenous community names. So you can look up your community, see what licenses are available. And again, these licenses are the first application of this. So if there's no unused spectrum in your area, there could be more coming when we use this window again. Lastly, there is an online form to submit comments. So we tried to simplify it. You can answer as many or as few questions as you want. You basically put in your contact information, put in your comments directly on this portal, and hit submit, and you're done. So we tried to kind of simplify the comment process. As Professor Taylor mentioned, the comment period's still open till the end of July 30th. Thank you to those who submitted comments for the April 30th deadline. We really appreciate it. My message today is kind of like Gregory Taylor's. It's please submit comments. We can help you. We're here all week. If you literally want to jot down your comments on a piece of paper and have those on the public record, do it, give it to us, and we'll scan those in when we get back. If you want to give them orally, we can write down your views and share it back with you to make sure we captured it and use that. So we're open to all different ways to get feedback. If you want to share it while we're here, we're happy to help. If you want us to walk you through kind of this online portal to submit comments, let us know. But yes, please check it out. So this slide just kind of shows how we've tried to spread the word and engage. So my notes just shut off. That's okay. Yeah, so we have an email distribution list. If you'd like to be included in that, again, just fire us an email and let us know, and we'll add you to our regular updates through email. So social media, we've tried to spread the word on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Email blasts on when this was published and when comments were published as well. we've heard time and time again, the importance of face-to-face engagement. So we've made efforts to try to attend as many events as possible within our budget. So we made it out to BC for a Métis Reconciliation Forum in January, I believe. And then from there, I attended the Winnipeg Aboriginal Financial Officers Association meeting. And then we're here today, grateful for this East Coast trip, and we were in Whitehorse a few weeks ago. Yeah, we'd like to, we wish we had more, money and time to travel and meet people face to face. Maybe down the road we will, but we're kind of making the best use of dollars we have. Other than that, we're open to as many virtual meetings and info sessions. If anyone wants, a walkthrough of the policy, wants more information on Spectrum. We've had a lot of meetings from community leadership, umbrella organizations, advocacy organizations over the last 4 months. So we're definitely seeing a lot of interest, which is fantastic. And if you want to reach out, please let us know. I think the music's playing, so I'll speed up. Sorry. Oh no, this is the best part. Okay. What we've heard so far. So again, on the policy objective, we've received 14 submissions. So again, thank you for those. Hoping to get more. We've heard generally our policy objective is supported, but the calls for spectrum sovereignty and rights to spectrum, some groups have made clear that's the ultimate vision and the ultimate goal. Sorry, I can't read. In terms of eligibility, I'll just say, we did see support for 2 of the ones that we put forward, Indigenous-owned business, as well as the community support-based. So my question kind of back to the group and back out there is, is it an either or a combination of both? We have heard the need to be flexible, especially with the applicant eligibility. So an idea could be, an either or situation, but would love to hear more comments on that from everybody. Conditions of license, being flexible, being cognizant of deployment requirements, as Dare Blackwater mentioned in the U.S. I know, the deployment requirements were an issue. Reduce fees or no fees for spectrum licenses. The timing of the window, we heard from some saying 1 year's okay, some wanted 2 years. One thing on that I'll note is after the 1 year window's up, you're still free to apply for these licenses, but it would be open to the public at that point. But we're considering both. And then lastly on engagement, face-to-face engagement is critical. Continuing to put more effort into making the material easier to digest, more visuals, like videos with no sound, and also looking for more ways to get the message out. We're very aware of the idea of engaging on a connectivity issue solely through the internet isn't great. We are looking at radio options for those that aren't connected, especially in northern remote communities. All this stuff's available online, but if you can't get online, it's no good. So we're exploring those kind of options as well, and also relying on groups such as this to get the word out as well. Lastly, I think I covered this, but this is some ways to participate. All our contact information. Again, it's available through the handouts that'll be at the front, or come see us, and I'll also share this presentation with everybody after we're done. What's next? Quickly, I'll say July 30th is kind of the most important date. That's when our engagement window ends. So please reach out before then, submit comments if you can. Following that, we'll take all those comments and develop the final paper. Once that final paper is published, the actual window itself would open, relatively soon afterwards. We have a table of key dates website that we'll continue to update once we have firm dates to put in there. Yeah, so I'll stop there, but happy to take any questions. Thank you, Miigwech.
Miigwech to the panel and miigwech to Mark Saunders for the presentation on Spectrum. And I really love the awareness that the panel and the speakers are showing. And I would like to talk about it with my peers at school about it. And we are now going to have a guided table discussion.
Yeah, so for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to have a guided... Oh, just kidding. We have a question first.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, Mark. It was great. I just have a quick question in terms of, in a couple of years, things are going to change at the government level. What is your group doing to protect your policies that you're going to take a look at and review? And will they continue, or will the new government disband those policies? Could you share a little bit about that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I hope I still have a job, not gonna lie. But yeah, it's tough to say, to be honest. I don't know. I haven't really heard many conservative views on Indigenous issues, which is probably not a good sign. But yeah, I don't know. My opinion would be the work, not just our team's doing, but across government. Like, I think we're too far down the road for things to go back to the way it was. I can't say how it's going to be if a new government comes in. We're all kind of curious to see that. In terms of Spectrum, this work has momentum. We're going to see this through. Mariella, Arpit, a big part of our job is advocating internally on your behalf, and you may not see all of that through this, but I can assure you the conversations are happening. We work every day to advocate for this, among other Indigenous spectrum-related issues. I guess my general thought would be, I think we're too far down the road to go back to the way it was. I think there's enough momentum with Indigenous access to spectrum, rights to spectrum internationally as well. There's too much work being done to ignore. I think it was with us pushing internally from our position, and with folks in this room advocating as well. I think together, our voices are too loud to ignore. So continue putting the pressure on, and I think we're here to stay. I hope. Good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Oh, Frank, is that a question? Just kidding.
So Mark, thanks for your presentation. I have a question more from, I guess, the Department of Justice angle or perspective on this matter. Has any conversations been having with ISED in terms of where the legal and the framework where it would be from that aspect?
In terms of like the rights legislative issue?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, in terms of what's Canada's positions from a Department of Justice perspective in terms of this momentum that's been happening for that past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be careful with what I say because this issue is before the courts, and you know, in certain areas, like there is ongoing litigation, but you know, like I said, there is the Radio Communications Act, which is a piece of legislation in Canada that you know, exists, and that's what gives the minister the authority to do this stuff. So yeah, I kind of want to just leave it at that. You know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but you know, as far as we are right now, the government hasn't you know, ceded rights to spectrum to Indigenous groups. Obviously, we all know that. So I'd say that's the current position. Yeah, that's about all I can give you on that.
Okay. I think for real.
Can I just give one separate shout out that's not related to
Yeah,
Spectrum?
of course.
I know we have a lot of youth here, which is fantastic. Besides the Indigenous Spectrum Guide ISED, I'm also the ISED Indigenous Career Navigator. So if there's any students here in post-secondary or in general that are interested in working with the government or at ISED, hit me up, send me your resume, or just get my contact information because you know, I can tell you the demand for you know, there is a lot of work being done to increase Indigenous representation in government. And for students, the door is a little easier to get through. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there. If anyone's interested, please chat with me. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Mark. Yes.